Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. I am so excited to share with you guys this update because we are seeing one of the same exact bottom formations inside of Ethereum and the rest of the altcoins that we saw right before Bitcoin went from 3K all the way to 14 in 2019. This was truly the biggest impulse that we had ever seen Bitcoin do to begin a new cycle, and we are seeing literally the exact same thing happening in Ethereum today. I am very confident that by the end of this video you guys are going to have the same idea that I do, and most importantly, you guys are going to be able to see exactly what's about to play out over the next couple years. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video. Now before I jump into this analysis, I wanted to quickly just say thank you so much for the support. Thank you guys for the constant support. Thank you guys for watching the videos, liking, commenting, and whatever it is you do. I don't really care. As long as you guys are participating on this channel, I just want to let you guys know from the bottom of my heart, I love you, I appreciate you, and I'm very thankful to be in this position that I'm in. I can see that, even at the lowest end of the bear market, which if we come over here, at the lowest end of the bear market, we were still getting a couple thousand views, and now, we're still getting even more views. And the fact that we're getting 4 and 3.5 and, anywhere from, I'd say 3 to 5,000 views on a video, to me, that's really cool. Now, it's not like I'm some super famous YouTuber or anything, but to have that many people that are subscribing, and maybe not even subscribing, but just, following along and watching and hearing what I have to say about the market, it really does mean a lot to me. Specifically with everything that's been going on in my life right now, between my grandma and just between me doing a lot of different things, I haven't been spending as much time on the channel, and for you guys to still be here entertaining yourselves and watching this, to me it's just a really great honor to have this opportunity in the first place. So I did want to quickly just say thank you guys so much. And now I'm going to be getting back to like a more frequent schedule, so to speak. So I did want to just say thank you guys for everybody that stuck around, that was used to having consistent updates and then watched me kind of drop the ball on that. So I'm going to be getting back into all of these habits and routines, so just wanted to quickly say thank you. Now let's get into the analysis today, and let's talk about something that I think is really going to blow your guys' minds. To me, this is something that every single cycle, we see new altcoins, we see old altcoins, and it's always led by Bitcoin ultimately. Now, what's really interesting is all of these cycles will mirror each other. And I've shared with you guys a lot of updates recently talking about that, how maybe Cardano looked like some of these other cycles, how Ethereum looked like some of these cycles, and how even Solana looks a little bit like Ethereum today. We've seen a lot of these comparisons, and you guys are able to understand exactly what I'm talking about. Now, today I wanted to get into another comparison because every cycle is different. Everything is always going to be different in its own way, but it's very similar. And when we have all of these multiple cycles to go off of, when we can go and look at the data, the price history, it gives us a good inclination of how to play the rest of the markets. Now, this is my third cycle. This is my 7th year in crypto, and I've made a ton of mistakes. You guys have obviously seen me make a ton of mistakes. I didn't sell the top, even though I told everybody when to sell the top. I just did a bunch of silly things, and at the end of the day, I have made a lot of money. I've been able to buy my mom a house. I've been able to do all of these great things, but I'm really excited for this cycle because I truly believe it's going to be the biggest one that we are going to have, and it could potentially be the very ending of the 4-year cycle itself. So let's get into this now that I've been rambling on and on and on. Now, right off the bat, guys, what we're going to be looking at is this 2018 bottom. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin. Now, when we come over here, this is the actual comparison that we're going to be making. If you guys notice, the 2018 bottom and the bottom that Ethereum has today is almost the exact same pattern. And I've been noticing this for a little bit, but we're getting to the point where we're going to be breaking out, and so I think it's very apparent that we need to be focusing in on this right now, because ultimately I believe this thing is about to move. But the difference here, notice when we come back down and we're looking at Bitcoin, from the very low end of the capitulation all the way to the point of us actually breaking out was 107 days. So when we're coming over here and looking at Ethereum, this is where things get interesting, because we're currently sitting at 420 days approximately. So once again, we have to keep in mind that this has been 3 times the accumulation. So when we're factoring in what's going to happen, we have to remember that when we're looking at the prior Bitcoin cycle, what we're comparing it to has to be different because the standard is different. The time in between this accumulation was 100 days, this one was 400 days. So we're looking at 3 times the accumulation here. Now, what we saw in this 2018 cycle, this was the run where Bitcoin went from 3.2K all the way to 14K, and we hit the 618 in that first impulse. That was the first time Bitcoin had ever made that big of a move, and we had never seen anything like it. Now, when we're looking at Ethereum today, I've been drawing consistently why I believed that we were ultimately going to run. TradingView switched some of the tools and now I can't find them. But I was watching for when we were going to run all the way back up to 3.5 thousand. And I told you guys that as long as Bitcoin makes a breakout like I was expecting, anywhere from 40 to 50K, Ethereum was going to go up to 3,500. And because we've literally spent 400 plus days inside of this ascending triangle, I think that it's a given that this is pretty much where we're just going to, instantly teleport. And when I say instantly teleport, I'm not even kidding. Like, this thing is going to have such a quick impulse straight to this level because of how much time we've spent here that most people aren't going to expect it. Most people are going to be caught off guard. And this is always where you see everybody FOMO in. Now, I remember being back down in here in 2018. Keep in mind, where I was at in my life, I had just moved to Fort Collins, Colorado. I was living with my crazy ex-girlfriend. The relationship was not good. I was also broke. I had no money. I had just started my business, so to speak, and at that time it was more or less just like consulting about crypto, and nobody was really giving me any money. I didn't really have anything because we're at the very bottom of the bear market and nobody believed me that we were going to have a new bull cycle. And so I was just struggling to survive the entire time, and I remember having all the rest of my money, having to use that to move to Fort Collins, and knowing that was kind of a silly idea, but men do silly things for women sometimes. But then we saw the market break out, and it had the biggest breakout ever. And I remember the entire time being, more or less depressed. Like, I genuinely was depressed in that time because I did have some money in the market. Don't get me wrong. I did have some money in crypto, but I had to spend almost all of it to get out to where I was going. And then the market broke out much bigger than I was anticipating. I, along with most people, was expecting this type of thing, and I was like, oh, I'll have plenty of time to get in here, I'll hurry and move to Fort Collins, I'll get a better job. And then that didn't happen. And so the reason I'm even talking about all of this is because what we are seeing with Ethereum is 3 times the accumulation, and I believe that this is going to lead to a very big move in a similar way, but how this one was more quickly done and elongated. To keep in mind that we bottomed end of the year and then we topped June, so this was already finished in the time that we've been in this. The cycle's different. We're already seeing something different. Ethereum bottomed in June over here, right? So Ethereum never made a lower low when FTX collapsed, right? Bitcoin did. If we come over here and look at that, Bitcoin made a lower low and Ethereum held a higher high. So there's something different about this cycle, and that's why I say, the impulse is going to be a little bit different, but when we're comparing the two, Bitcoin topped at the 618, and the next move for us being about 3,500, that is our 618. Right there. So that's why I've been saying we're probably going to end up hitting that level. And what we're comparing with Bitcoin, we're seeing the exact same setup. Price action is almost the same. And this is why I always tell you guys, study the prior cycles, understand market cycles, because what we're seeing usually every single bull run is almost the same pattern repeated. Now, this is what I wanted to share with you guys quickly, talking about the main part of this video. Now, I did actually want to talk a little bit about altcoins, one specific altcoin. Something that I'm seeing inside of the market that reminds me a lot of, one of my signals that I posted and one of my first trades when I first launched my group entirely. And so we're going to come over here and we're going to talk a little bit about Terra Luna. Now, keep in mind, guys, that this obviously crashed and went to nothing, so we have to understand that. But the thing is, I bought this all the way back down at the beginning of the cycle in 2022 at 32 cents. So I bought this at the beginning, and the only reason I bought this was because I saw a perfect one-wave impulse, I saw a perfect ABC correction, and then we were just accumulating sideways. And the reason why I wanted to buy that is because all the way back, keep in mind, guys, that I got into crypto in 2016, so I've been studying all of these charts since the very beginning. And so I recommend that everybody does the same thing, because this is the way that I've seen some of my most profitable investments. I'm really trying harder to, invest based off of like narratives, things like good projects, not just about a chart. But when you compare a chart and you have a project that is really doing good things, they're building, they have partnerships, they've been building in bear markets, whatever it is that you're looking for, you know, at the end of the day, those are going to be some of the best setups that you have. And I remember watching Ethereum back in the early days where it gets added to exchanges, they make this big ABC correction, and then they make the first impulse, right? And after the first impulse, they just kind of go sideways. And I remember watching ETH do this, and many other altcoins did the same thing. But ETH was the best performing one, right? And we watched it go through that entire bull run like crazy. So I always compare things. I look at the best performing altcoins, and I compare which ones are actually accumulating in a similar pace. And so I saw that happening with Terra Luna. It was its own way, it was its own fractal, but to me it looked the same. So I bought it. And then it ended up being almost the exact same. But like I told you guys in prior videos, I sold most of mine here, and then I sold most of it over here. It was actually 20 bucks right there. So I got almost completely out of my position. I had, you know, I think I had about 10 grand over here at the top left over, and then that ended up dropping, lost most of it because it corrected. I just still held it. And then it ended up going up for an entire another wave 5. I never ended up selling. It crashed and went to nothing. So I, you know, that 100 grand or whatever it turned out to be was almost nothing in the bigger picture. I did get the airdropped token of whatever the new coin is, but obviously I'm just rambling. So anyways, guys, this is what I'm talking about. You're going to see setups like this, and we're going to see them happen in different ways, but every single cycle I see the same sort of patterns, and a lot of these same patterns that look like some of the better returning altcoins end up actually doing it. And so, you know, you got to look at different factors. It's not like we can only look at a chart, because charts themselves, you know, there's many factors at play. Something could change inside the project and then the tokenomics change, or, you know, everything can be adjusted and the prices change because of that. So we're talking about these things, and we're understanding in the big picture that we can't always just guarantee on certain things to always be the same. Now, with that being said, I wanted to talk to you guys about a coin that, in my opinion, is kind of doing the same sort of setup. The only difference here is, like, when I'm comparing it to Terra Luna, I had, you know, it had, I should say, a much smaller market cap. So this is sitting at about $130 million. But in the big picture, I don't think that that's going to matter a whole lot. I think that it can still have significant upside potential anywhere in the 50 to 100x range. Now, when we're looking at the chart, I really like to look for charts that are doing these same sort of patterns. And to me, this is one that is doing that same setup. We saw the first sort of breakout. Now, the only thing that I see inside of this itself could be an impulse right here and a correction because we held a higher high, but this was a lower low right here. This ended up making a lower low, so this can't be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ABC, and that was initially what I was expecting. However, because it made a lower low, there would have to be some sort of impulse happening here in that first breakout, which is possible. And the only reason I'm saying this stuff is because it kind of changes the perspective that we have to have when factoring in this. Now, you can make the argument that this was the wave 1 impulse, this little tiny move in here, and it was just a tiny 1, overextended 3, and then, you know, a 5 up. So this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say the impulse probably happened right here, and so we have had a wave 1 impulse. So when we're comparing it to Terra Luna obviously only had one wave, and then it just started going crazy. But that's why I say every cycle is going to be different in their own way. The thing I like about this one, and what I actually have told you guys a lot, reason I like a lot of different altcoins, GMX is a good example, is because of stacking one waves. We're seeing a lot of different altcoins, a lot of altcoins on Arbitrum too, that are making stacking one waves, where you have a wave 1 impulse, a correction, and then you have another wave 1 impulse, and a correction. And this is what always ends up happening right before a much greater impulse takes place. And so these are always the ones that I like to look for. Certain things that look like they're holding support, they seem to be holding well, even when the market's selling off, no matter what's actually happening. And to me, the focus should always be the end of the cycle. So we're always focusing in on holding clear to the very end, as much as we possibly can. It's hard because the market goes up, your altcoins go up a lot, and you want to take profit. So I understand. For me, there will be periods where I will want to take profit. For example, when ETH runs up to 35 or 3600, I'll want to take some profit there because I believe we will have some type of correction. Is that the top before we have, you know, a major cycle top and do that? I really don't know, guys. I have no idea. But what would be interesting is, you know, what if this did just kind of make this correction maybe we correct fairly close back down to that prior high, but then it just starts going back up again like this. It's hard to say what's going to happen, but we could go through a decent period of uptrending like this that would be fairly relatable with, prior cycles. I would say 2017 would be kind of a good example of that, how some of these cycles will make consistent uptrends. We don't know how quick this market's going to run. That's all I'm trying to say. This thing could take off and hold better support. We always have to expect the unexpected. I don't want to get too carried away taking heavy profit at this level, but I think it is smart to definitely take some profit if you're up a lot in any of this stuff. This cycle is just unique in its own way. And so that's why I always say you're probably better off just focusing on the long term in general. That's how I've made more money. And, had I actually just held all of the stuff that I bought from the very beginning to the top, I would have made way more money. Just as simple as that. I would have made so much more money had I done that. And so I'm kind of focusing in on doing that going into this next cycle. Everything I tell you guys on this channel has been learned from my own mistakes. I've made a million of them. I consistently make mistakes, but at the same time, this is the one cycle I really do believe everything's going to work out in the best way because I have experience, I have knowledge, and I also have, more or less the study that I didn't have in the other two cycles. I had sort of the knowledge, I had some of the different things, the experience, but I didn't understand a lot of the fundamentals behind these tokens. I didn't understand some of those things, and now going into this cycle, I feel much more prepared, more so than ever before, and that's where I believe you end up finding those, 100, 1000x, you never really know, but this cycle, we have more adoption than ever before. I think all of this is paired perfectly where we don't have COVID, we don't have any of that stuff. We could see a very solid uptrend that behaves in a much more parabolic way. Even for ETH, one thing I want to remind you guys real quick before we finish up this video, when we're looking at Ethereum against Bitcoin, we are seeing a very obvious accumulation that's taking place. And this reminds me a lot more of the consistency we saw with 2016 and 2017. I just don't believe we're quite there to the 2017 type of rallies yet. But we've talked a lot about the 4-year cycles. We know that if we're going to follow a general 4-year cycle, we want to see a right translation. We want to see us top on the right side of the midpoint of the range, right? Between the cycle high and the cycle low. Our cycle high is projected to be the end of the year 2025. So obviously we bottomed at the end of the year last year. So we know that as long as we're topping at least past 715 or 20 days, I believe is what it is, as long as we're topping past that point, then we're going to expect to see a normal 4-year cycle. But if we're breaking past all-time highs and this cycle is doing something much different that we haven't seen before, for example, if ETH is breaking out and it's already into new all-time highs before our halving, way before our halving, like I'm talking, we start breaking out maybe even the end of this year, I'm personally going to be a little bit skeptical on that because we'll be doing something we haven't seen. We could be having a much quicker parabolic top, and that would relate much more similarly with a left translated cycle. So we have to understand that I believe we have a right translation, and this ends up being a normal 4-year cycle, which should in theory create something along the lines of this, where mid 2024 we're still sitting below those all-time highs, but we're getting relatively close to the point of breaking out of them. And then once we're getting into 2025, that entire year should be the one of the parabolic rally. In the same way that these cycles played out, the only difference is we're already seeing a little bit more of a quicker uptrend than compared to what we saw in the last cycle. And I think that that's about to get kicked off here fairly soon. So this is kind of what I'm watching for ETH. I think that we'll do something like this. It'll just be a nice build, a nice foundation, I should say, of a parabolic impulse where it's just doing something like that, right? That's generally what we see in every single cycle. It kind of varies in its own way, but so far we've made a very consistent uptrend. Like I said, 420 days, blaze it inside this ascending triangle. The second that we start breaking out of this point, I think that that's really where, we're going to be able to decide what happens. And to me, I'm going to take some profits up here. I recommend that people definitely take profits if they're up significantly, but understand that the big picture is more profitable, and I would have made more money had I just held the whole time. So, if you don't feel comfortable trading, I wouldn't do it at all. If you feel like, as a person, you're much better just buying and holding the long-term trend, and you don't want to get greedy, remember that, because that's what always ends up costing ourselves our long-term portfolios. Just remember that the better strategy is to hold long term. Ignore what I'm saying about taking profits just because that's what I might do personally, because I have more experience and I've been consistently learning how to do this for a long time. So keep it. So just wanted to give you guys this update. Hopefully this summarized some thoughts and concerns. Drop some comments. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. If you guys want to ultimately see what I'm investing in, what altcoins I'm buying, where I'm buying them, any sort of leverage position trades and things like that, links are in the description. Go ahead and check out my VIP. That's where you're going to be able to follow all my trades and different things like that. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.